Hi, this is Laurie Laizure with To the Trade, and I have Denise Butchko here with me. I'm so excited, Denise, because we've known each other for so long at this point. The interior design community is 12 years old, and I think we've known each other just about the same amount of time.
I think so, which is so awesome. You're so awesome. So
Oh,
thank you so much.
of course. And I have always admired you've been an educator, a teacher in the industry. You've worked with lots of different technical products through the years. And I'm really excited to find out what you're doing now, which is delving into natural stone and working with designers. Tell me a little bit about how that transition happened for you.
So I was in the closet industry. I had my own business doing high-end closet design, which is still an industry that I really love. But that business was I was also working in marketing and social as it was coming into it's what it has taken over in our lives. And it was really at a point where it's like, this is not giving me like the pros and cons weren't quite weighing out. So I thought, let me go to Salon de Mobile and when I was there, which is the kitchen and bath show in Italy, I'm like looking at all these 400,000 people and I'm like, man, so many of them are here on someone else's expense account. And I want to see what it feels like to work for an international company. So I came back from the show, just started reaching out to my network and Caesar Stone, Ford's, well, they have more Fords now. They hired me. So I went from being in the closet to being a stoner, as I often tell people,
I love it.
uh, and spent time with them and then moved to MSI surfaces. So I was getting deeper and deeper, so to speak, into the stone industry. And through that evolution, really realized I wanted to be working for a smaller business. I now work for a fabricator, a woman owned fabrication shop. And she is also, Gina is her name. It's Precision Stone Design. And we are also a business that the goal or the intention is not just to be a fabrication shop, it's to really do more than that. So, like, we brought on this product called Borrowed Earth, which is textured stone, and we'll continue to evolve it with the idea being that we really are, I think, the designer's fabricator in this Chicagoland market in terms of we love a challenge for something that's more complex. Whereas there are a lot of shops that just crank out the kitchens and
Right,
have it.
right. Yeah. You have when in your past too, if people don't know you, you really dig into the technical. That's something that you've always done, and you've really not only dug into technical, but also really shared that information out there in social as an educator writer through the years. When you decided to go international and then go down into working for a female-owned fabricator, which is fantastic, what led you to be as interested in the natural stone process as you are, or the natural stone as you are now? You seem very passionate about it, so it's exciting to hear that transition.
Beauty is one of my core values in every aspect of my life. So what and I'll answer that with a scenario of people would come in and they look at stone, or I go do CEUs at A&D firms and such. And the most common question is, what's the difference between quartz and quartzite?
Right.
So my answer is always, well, quartz is a manufactured stone made by man, and quartzite is a natural stone made by Mother Nature or woman.
Right.
So it's really the beauty of a natural stone, the uniqueness. I feel like just the design community and the clients that we're fortunate enough to work with want an expression of that, of their individuality, the uniqueness to the design. And then there's also an element of natural stone that is sustainable. It came from the earth, it can go back to the earth. Quartz is not, it is a manufactured product. So how, what are in just the bigger scheme of how are we taking care of the planet and what are we doing? But beauty is the main driver for me. When I can see something and go,
Oh, I know. And you go to the stone yards and you're just like,
oh,
there's just so much to select from. And every designer I know, They're not just going and going, that stone. They're like literally going in and looking at every part of it, knowing where it's going to be positioned.
Yep.
They're looking at it with different sets of eyes.
Yes. Yes. Than just a homeowner who hears on some reality TV show that quartz is in, and I'm not bad mouthing quartz,
Right.
just giving the pros and cons of the kind of the differences in how they're playing out in the market.
Right, right. What trends do you see are changing in this industry? Because there's a lot going on in surface materials and obviously the environmental impact of for fabricators alone, if has silica in it and they're trying
Yeah.
to cut it. How what do you see as changing to help that move forward, the environmental impact?
So almost all stones have some level of silica in them. What I think people need to understand about that is that there's no risk if you have whatever kind of stone you have installed in your home. The risks on the silica element come from when it is being fabricated with all the fine dust particles that if somebody's not using protective equipment, PPE, they can breathe that in and that can cause serious illness. So I think that the manufacturers of quartz are more cognizant. You can see that both Cosentino and Caesar Stone have adjusted I'm going to call them recipes. I find it's easiest to make food analogies.
Right.
Adjusted the recipes are focusing more on mineral content, are working to reduce so that it still brings a safer element to the people cutting. I also think this isn't, I guess this could be a trend, Lori. I think it's something I'd love to see the design community pay attention to. There is often a point clients have a budget and we find vendors and sometimes we need like the most affordable vendor. And what I think is important is that if you're working with practices safe standards, OSHA can come in anytime and inspect them. I think consider please moving in that direction versus sourcing from vendors who maybe don't have their own equipment, have a pickup truck and an A-frame because of the elements of safety on what's happening and them maybe knowing or not knowing. That will often impact the price. Of course, someone with a
Right.
business that had more overhead, it, but I think that's a consideration that everyone should individually decide about their business.
Absolutely. When we're talking about more budget friendly projects, I want to go the other extreme. Can you tell me, since you started, if there was a project that was like knock your socks off and what was that like?
When somebody employs an onyx or which is very investment heavy,
Yes.
or a quartzite, and there are, of course, many beautiful marbles as well. You see that, and it takes it from the drama of seeing it as a slab to then you're like, "Oh my gosh," and when it's something that can be backlit or the designers
Oh,
have done a
the backlit.
very
Yes.
yes, it's so
I
again,
know, right? Oh,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
when designers come up with something a little out of the box and gorgeous, and clients embrace it. Whether you're seeing a built up edge that might be 10 inches in a highly dramatic island, everything to scale, of course, but those kinds of things really, I think when people love them, I myself was like, I have a quartzite on my vanity and it's been a recent addition. And I just was like petting it for a week. So I think it really moves the soul. It's this huge surface project. So I think the selection should come before the cabinet selection,
Right.
actually.
Yeah, yeah, because you can match those undertones and those veins, and
Right.
it's so cool, and I would say that that feeling of having these natural elements leading to biophilia and all of the wonderful things that come from
Yes.
having natural surfaces around, it just feels good. It feels good.
Agree.
And I like designers playing with finishes to the more matte honed finishes
Yes.
versus the glossier finishes that more like clients would be more used to. And it's such an investment. We think about the granite countertops and then how that has evolved. And I think that is difficult. I even think from the design perspective, because of course designers don't want to lead their client down a path where something might be outdated or something might be have a feeling like the client isn't fully invested in it. And sometimes they don't understand everything that goes into stone and maintenance of that and how that works. So, I what do you think about the designer specifying, and what are the tips you'd give a designer specifying to educate their client a little bit further so that they understand where that investment is going and the longevity of that investment when they're thinking natural stone?
I think it's always wise to have a fabricator partner or two that are really very invested in emotionally and physically and business wise in the industry because they are your greatest experts and will give you the information, particularly to the design community, in a way that is less. Now, we are both marketers, and everyone on some level is a marketer, but there is a marketing, and I love marketing, but
Right.
there is a when quartz came into the market, that had a big marketing machine behind
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
and same with porcelain now as a newer surface to come into the market for horizontal applications. So if you have a good fabricator partner, then that's going to be a great source of education for you and learn. Ask them every question because it is that difference when people think, oh, just rip it out. Yeah, no, it's going to go on landfill. Do we have to? Or don't put a 30-year countertop on 5-year cabinets. Like, oh, let's just give it a facelift. But then what? You got to tear it all out again in 5 years? Like, no. So I think you want to do that sort of thing and pay attention to if there are opportunities where if you have reps from any of the companies, give them 10 minutes to come in and talk to you or meet them somewhere so that as they either stay at the same place or move in their career, that they're going to become your network locally of knowledge about the product. So if I use quartz as an example, and you're a designer in Florida, who around there that talk to your Cambria, your Cosentino, your Caesarstone, your MSI, talk to those reps and ask them the same questions and see what kind of answers that you get. Because that's our job is to help you. And
Yeah,
so let us help you.
of course. And part of helping is coming up with those solutions when things go wrong. I know when
Yeah.
we did get Cosentino countertops for our house here.
Mhm.
And I would say a month in, my husband was opening an Amazon box and just grabbed the knife, and a little tiny chunk came out because he just hit it on the edge a little bit. Of
Yeah.
course, I was like devastated. They were brand new. But the fabricator came, they fixed the problem. You really don't even see it. It went away essentially for us. It's knowing what problems might arise with stone, natural stone, fabricated stone, how it could chip, how it could putting hot items on it. We're very cognizant about putting anything hot, like an air fryer even, onto
Yes. Yes.
the stone because I've heard the horror stories from designers, of course, and interior design community where it cracked and it broke.
Yep.
And those are the things that I think from a consumer wanting to specify, those are the questions that they need answered and that the designer really needs to stay on top of so that when those problems arise, they have those solutions handy and they understand like how to clean it, how to maintain it, what to do if there is a problem. What are you doing if there is like a little scratch or something for natural stone? How do you handle
The
that?
the natural propensity is that the fabricator and the manufacturer, and then sometimes the designer, end up pointing fingers. Like
Sure.
that
Yeah.
is, I've walked through that experience a lot.
Yes.
Um, so again, the better you have partners, the more you're able to It depends on the stone in terms of being able to be repaired, but you really want to talk to your fabricator who either has someone on the team that's very good at that or they have sources to be able to do that. I
Right.
think there's also a sense of if you think about walking around Italy and you're seeing all those, you're walking on those stairs that are hundreds, if
Yes.
not thousands of years old,
Right.
you have to embrace the patina factor of life.
Right.
And if you don't like that, then go in another direction.
I
For
love a
certain-
patina, and I think that's part of explaining that to the designers. Like, I have a designer friend who was meeting some budget challenges and needed to keep the countertop, and so they did have it honed, and so it made it more matte surface, totally changed the look. It was a glossy, I wanna say green-looking stone countertop. Brought that down to olive, like, it was less olive, like, it was almost more brown in the tones. It totally changed the look of it, and with all of her new design in there, because they were just meeting some budget issues, and this was a gorgeous product too, by the way. It was in many ways incredibly stunning, and it was gorgeous. It fit, it felt right, it felt new, it felt exciting for the client, I think, too, and that's something that I think that maybe not as well known in the design industry, that sometimes those are things you can do with the plate if you have a good stone to start with, if you're starting with something good.
and a good fabricator. So
And a good
this
fabricator, yes.
place where when you come up with the ideas, ask the fabricator. There will be a balance of like when I worked with quartz more, and we do sell quartz. If you took a polished finish to a honed, it void the warranty. Just be
Right,
aware of what
getting
you're
yourself
getting
into.
to if
Yeah,
you move in that direction. Also, the example you use taking it from polished to honed, not every fabricator will do that because it is enormously time consuming. So you will still have to pay for that. But you
right,
can find then sources who will, and then you make an informed decision. I think just don't always ask the fabricators that you're working with
right.
or another one in your market if you're trying to achieve something. And if three of them tell you that's a crazy idea, then, but if somebody will do it and still back up their work, then yeah. So changing the finish, it's hard to, there's a risk. And as long as you're aware of that, if we're like tearing out this countertop, that it stays intact, just
Always a
so
risk, of course, yeah.
communication is
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
then you weigh the pros and cons.
Now, if we were starting from the beginning and we have a new, I would say a designer 5 years into the industry, walking through and selecting for specific spaces like kitchens, bathrooms, feature walls, things like that. Are there materials that you gravitate, or is it just really just project driven? Or are there specific stones you would say, this is really hot right now for kitchens and this is why?
I think it is about when someone's walking the slab aisles, when you get
That
that's
gut
dictate.
reaction. Yeah.
And then, so I think that drives trends more than anything. That's what you want. This is an investment. So you want to love it.
Right.
And don't let all of your, I like vanilla, but don't let all of your vanilla friends be like, I don't know, but you should have a light porch
Yes.
counter. Like, oh
Yes.
my, stop it. You don't have to have shaker style doors either. So I think that awareness, if in one, you're going to try to guide on the budget, which if you have someone from the fabrication shop walking with you, then they can provide some of that insight. If you go into a Caesar Stone, a Cosentino, like they cannot give you pricing.
Right.
So don't be mad at them for that. It depends on your fabricator.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I think know that if you want the beauty of marble, that you need to embrace that there's going to be patina. There are people who clean stuff up right away and people who never do. Be aware of how you live and
Yes.
don't think, oh my gosh, I'm not going to clean that up for 3 days. And then you're calling and complaining because there's a wine stain on it. It's
Yeah.
a natural material.
Right.
If somebody porcelain is very hard, very durable, it's like cutting glass. It can, as was the I'm guessing your tops were decked in. There can be chipping that then you need to manage that expectation. So it's really knowing if you didn't know what the categories were and you had different features, or the designer asked, what are the most important elements? And if it's Mr. and Mrs. Bickerson are going back and forth between one's very messy and one is very fastidious and clean, then somehow you need to meet whoever's going to be using that kitchen the most.
Right.
So I really do think it's
Love and lifestyle. That's so great.
love and lifestyle.
I love
Yeah.
that. What about for finishes? Are you seeing more polished, toned, leathered? What are you seeing people ask?
My personal, like I'm a leathered, give me and then honed and then polished, like in terms
Right.
of and love that.
Right.
You don't see the light reflecting. It's a little more forgiving. What most people will say is, yes, but then you have to clean it more. So it's another, to me, it's another 10 seconds because you have a leather finish is a rougher finish. So yeah, I don't feel like that's a big deal if you love it.
I think so too.
So
Yeah. It's just knowing the materials that are going to be a little bit more harsh, staying away from. But your fabricators, when you go through that, will, depending on the stone, tell you what cleaners you need to stay away from. Because a lot of times, that's the thing with designers is that the client isn't always cleaning. A lot of their clients have cleaners. So
oh,
that message always has to trickle down and that information has to trickle down to the people who are actually cleaning the house so that those things are going to hold up because of course the designer is going to hear about it if that wine stain is on that countertop for sure. Um,
yeah.
how do you think that the industry of natural stone is approaching ethically sourced materials nowadays? Are we paying attention to that aspect in this industry?
I think, yes, we are. There's the Natural Stone Institute that is a big driver of that. And there are because the larger you are as a fabricator, meaning you have more than one CNC machine, which most shops don't, the greater your odds that work that is beyond residential, that could lean more into commercial, will
Right.
come into your sphere of
Sorry, my
business.
dog.
So, that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, and that group, the Genslers of the world,
Yeah.
are very good custodians of our planet. They work. We don't think about it. I don't think as much. Not
Right.
that we don't think about it, but we're working with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and then Mr. and Mrs. Jones, where they're like, we have to build this 30-story building. How are we thinking about that? Now,
Right.
a lot of commercial space is also driven by budget.
Right.
But there are inexpensive granites, and I think that there is a bump in natural stone sales because I think as the younger element of the population is more cognizant of what's going on with the planet.
They are. They're very cognizant and will buy that way too. So
Yes,
they
exactly.
care that it's ethically sourced. They care that it's has a smaller carbon footprint coming into their space. And they do to some extent care about biophilia when they know about it. They're not really
Mhm.
as up in that side of it as they should be, probably. Do you see that there are any challenges with natural stone as far as if I'm a designer and I'm going to go if I'm going to recommend natural stone versus, you know, quartz, what would those challenges be with the client? Is it very straightforward and it's really the same kind of thing? Or are they having more of a discussion with that client being that it's natural stone?
Price will often come into play
Of
as a major.
course. Yeah.
I think that this, like much of the work that designers do with particularly a client who has never had the opportunity to do a custom renovation of
Right.
any sort. So you have this huge outlay investment of
Right.
education for
And
for
money.
them. Mhm. That
And
too.
money.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying, I'm sure, for that person who's never done it
Uh,
before.
100%. Like the more that you can lay out that like this is what's going to happen, this is going to happen, this that's super important. But
Sure.
also as you're educating your client, whether it's about the cabinets or the countertops or the upholstery, each time you're educating them, they trust you more. So
Right.
that's huge. I want to encourage, realize that all of your education does not have to be perfect and it doesn't have to just come from you.
Right.
So if you as the designer can think a little more long term, okay, here's a folder of the stuff on my computer that I want my customers to know. And whether that's you've done a PDF about the different stone elements, or you get it from someone who does, or you like some videos that you've seen and you save those, it's almost an orientation packet that you could, if somebody's done 5 houses, there's a lot that they already know
Sure.
versus a first-time home buyer who or first-time renovator, I should say. So I think that the education is key. And I think don't trust initially everything you hear on HGTV. Oh yeah, you can put hot surfaces on quartz. And oh, that
We
natural
hear the horror stories
stone.
from the designers, so we're
Right.
in a group
Exactly.
going,
Or the
"Oh,
tough
no, that just happened?"
decision. And it's like you reseal it. It's not that big of a deal. And you've made this investment. Somebody takes care of changing the oil on your car. Oh, and you have to reseal countertops less often than you probably have to change the oil of your car. I think that is a key point because it's when you don't discuss the information
Right.
that the problems can happen.
Right. As long as they are educated and they can make an educated decision, then they are prepared to live with the consequences of those decisions better because they
Yes.
understand what the risks are. Now, how are you when you're talking to designers about natural stone versus quartz, and I as you said, you have both at your fabricator. Are you always looking for the beauty aspect, or are you looking for functionality in the mix?
Form follows function. Yes, there is that element. And
Right.
finding out, like I had someone say to me the other day, Denise, I know you love this natural stone, but like the way the patterns aren't consistent would drive me bonkers. I'm like, oh, okay, good information.
Yeah,
Then we'll go in the direction of getting you quartz because that's what you feel most
really
comfortable.
want. Yeah. And there are people that cannot, they're OCD enough that they can't. Natural stone is going to have its own beauty and it's going to
Yeah.
have its own look to it. And that's just going to be a fact.
Yeah.
Are there
Oh, and there are customers who are like, oh, I don't get big splotch there. And that's not a splotch. That is part of the whole
yeah.
thing.
I can't rub it out.
Uh, exactly.
Are there budget options for natural stone? Is that something that what is that range for you? Are there some is it always the highest ticket price?
And well, no, an onyx or a mark in a natural. Here would be my insights on that
Right.
is that there are granites in particular, not, it doesn't have to be Ubatuba, but there are more affordable granites, especially if you go to a large stone supplier like an MSI who
Right.
has all kinds and sources from all over the world.
Right.
The other thing is know what your fabricator stocks.
Right.
So if I'm in Chicago and I've got a customer that is in love with Cambria, I know Old World Stone works with that very heavily. If they're in love with Caesar Stone, I know Stone Masters loves that stone heavily. You know, if there's someone like a Precision where Gina will go and buy stone, then anything that we have in stock, we sell just by the square foot. So you don't have to buy the entire slab. So
Okay.
ask about those kinds of things because that will save you money in the long run and the materials there. You've seen it, you're gonna tag it, that's what's gonna be cut for your job, and it
Yeah,
removes a lot of the other unknown variables, and it is a great way to save money.
that is awesome. Are there any tips and tricks that you guys have learned along the way to maintain natural stone?
Use a balanced pH cleaner. I am not here to endorse products, but I'm like, you can use Simple Green. I'm not a huge fan of the scent, but I found this Bono lavender something or other that I'm like, oh, I don't want to go quite so far as to say I enjoy cleaning because I never, but it's not bad. It's like,
Bad.
it
You can
smells
handle
good at me.
it.
So I think that and neutral and like, I live in a one-bedroom apartment, but to make sure I clean off the surfaces, there's a bottle in the kitchen and a bottle in the bathroom with paper towel right next to them. They're not very far apart, but that's how, like, I have to
Like to
make
do
it
it. Yeah, it needs to be there. It
few
needs.
barriers as possible. Open one door.
And I know how you're gonna answer this, but I'm just curious if we'll get anything else. But how does
Yeah.
the role between collaboration with fabricators, installers, and suppliers contribute to the success of interior designers?
When you develop those relationships, we know that's the key to life,
Right.
to being successful in business.
In this
So,
industry for sure. If you
sure.
have those people that you can talk to, and they don't necessarily have to be your fabricator, your rep. Sometimes we have designers who live in areas where, the local fabricators maybe not the best source of information. It doesn't have to necessarily be your local fabricator. Sometimes if you deal with more high volume fabricators, they know a lot more
Oh,
tips
yeah.
and tricks. They're doing higher volume business, they're turning
Yes.
things over more. So a place like Chicago would probably have fabricators that are turning over more business than a place in Wisconsin somewhere or Idaho somewhere. Also, expanding your network beyond where you're even buying from so that you
Mhm.
have a pool of people to ask questions that might be an expert in this industry. It might be one of those people like you who likes to dig in and find information and really know what they're talking about and asking the right questions. So I think that's huge. In this industry for me, that has been the biggest part of my success is connecting and learning from
Abs
people
Yes.
for sure.
I
Listening.
I'm with you, like, on that all the way. There are design firms in the Chicago market who I was able to visit before COVID and with different brands that then the combination of after COVID and a different brand, some of them wouldn't even let me back in the door. Or if they did let me back in, was because they knew and liked me and feel like they can count on me to get them the information they need. And that goes to the relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you never want to close that door because there's
No,
just you never know where people go. You went from closets to stone. You never know.
exactly. And I have found I really enjoy and am intentional about networking with younger professionals because you don't ever know where they're going to go or who they're going to know. And they become like clients for life if
Oh,
you treat
absolutely.
them right.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and they should and I feel strongly about educating younger designers and so that they are prepared for this industry. I mean, it's the one thing about interior design community that I love the most is that the designers who are very experienced who comment, and I will personally message them and DM them and say, thank you for that because the younger designer who hasn't been there, who hasn't been in business 25 years, they just don't know. They just don't know. And how do
No,
they
right.
know? Design school doesn't prepare them for every possible scenario their business could go through. And so having those connections and having those experts in the industry, I have reps that from every walk of this industry that I respect as much as the CEOs of those companies or more, really, frankly, or
Yeah.
more, because they know so much and they give so much back to the
Yes.
industry. And they really do understand designers. There are some that don't. There are some that would rather talk to the fabricators, rather talk to the showrooms. there's that too. So if you have people in this industry that are outwardly educating, grab those people, keep them in your
Yes.
network as much as you
And get
possibly
off your
can.
phone and go to an event.
Yes.
And we do, I shameless plug for the NKBA, which I am the Chicago chapter president, but it
Yes.
is that there's we're having a party, holiday party tomorrow. It's gonna be like over 150 people. Come shake hands.
Shake hands, get to know your community, get to be a
Yeah.
part of it. And you guys are great, welcoming. So NKBA has always been so welcoming to new members. It doesn't have the mean girl stuff going on. It's very, very open to new members and trying to educate. But you guys have fun too. You
Oh
do
yeah.
have fun and you are friends, real
Yeah.
friends. And that's key. That's key.
It is. It is.
So I'll ask you a few fun questions as we close out. If you could only use one type of stone for the rest of your life, rest of your career, what would that be and why?
Quartzite because of its beauty and its durability. Hands down, no debate.
No debate. Okay.
Not for
What's the most surprising or innovative use of natural stone that you've ever seen?
ooh, that's a good one. I I would tell you even though I don't technically design closets anymore, I'm itching for someone in the Chicago market to come through with a big first closet design that has like natural stone shelves that I can line up. And
Ooh,
I really want to
you
see
want to sink your teeth into that. I bet you
yeah,
would. That's the blending of your world.
exactly. I
I
will say
love
it
it.
also tribute to Marshall Fields back in the day. The lavatory stalls used to be this gorgeous pink granite. And
Oh,
then they tore it out and replaced it with so that wasn't it was something you don't see much anymore, but ooh, I loved that.
I love that too. Outside of your work, what inspires creativity and fuels your passion for the design industry?
Mm. Lake Michigan and Chicago architecture. Like it's still when I walk the streets or go into the mart, it's still the masons and the metal workers and the people that made this all the beauty that it is for this city I live in inspires me like all the time.
Oh, that is so wonderful. And we always like to ask everyone, what does community mean to you?
What does connection, the ability to ask a question and taking the answers without being attacked, like you use the main girl reference, really is oxygen for me.
Right, right. Because it can be so isolating, even if you're not working. I think we always think about the solo entrepreneur, but beyond the solo entrepreneur, we're all working in our own silos. And so community is such a great way to connect with people with different viewpoints in the same industry you're working in and can really expand what you know and how you're right. It's oxygen. It feels like it brings you new life, new sense of joy when you can connect. I know when we go to trade show events and we see having to see each other and you get a hug from your fellow design colleague, it's just the best.
I agree. Absolutely. Like I'll come home from these events and I'm just like, that didn't even feel like work, especially as you maneuver more in the industry and your network gets deeper and wider. It's like the most rewarding thing.
It's like you're building a family for yourself too.
Yeah,
It
that
work
you pick.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate being able to talk to you about this. It's something I think that designers really want to know more about, and you are always such a wealth of information.
Thank you. I love doing it. It's super fun. I didn't go into teaching because there was no money in it. So,
But you still
but
love
I
to teach
still,
and you still
but I
do it
still love
now.
to do. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
thank
So
you.
I'm happy anytime to answer questions. Always.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll put your information in the description so that people can get in touch with you and that they can ask questions. That would be
Awesome.
so fantastic. Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Lori. I appreciate it.